Myth 1, budget rifles can't hang with the high-end stuff. That idea dies the moment you put a few rounds down range. Take this Tika. I don't know if people call it budget, but it sits on the lower end of the price scale and still shoots like it means business. Paid about $800 for mine, splurged for the stainless, cost a little more but worth it, and the first group we put on paper was proof enough. Tight, honest holes. I admit I pulled one, there's always that one flyer, but the other three were right where they should be. I'll be clear, I'll keep testing these cheap rifles. I've already reviewed the Ruger American, and there are Remingtons and others you can buy for next to nothing. With a little time behind the trigger and a bit of tinkering, some of these cheap guns will surprise you. They'll shoot true. Are the expensive rifles nicer? Absolutely. Smoother actions, better stocks, finer touches all around. They feel like the art in your hands. But feeling nice and getting the job done aren't the same thing. Hunting with a budget rifle doesn't make you any less effective than the person carrying a $3,000 or $4,000 rifle. Skill and ammo and how well you know your gear matter far more than the sticker price. Oh, and I'm planning more budget rifle reviews, so if that's your thing, subscribe so you don't miss them. Myth 2, a longer barrel means more accuracy. Here's the truth. Barrel length affects velocity and sight radius, not accuracy itself. Longer barrel gives your bullet a little more time to pick up speed, sure. It also gives you a longer sight picture if you're shooting with open sights, which can help you line up a more precise shot. That's not the same thing as the gun being more accurate. Accuracy comes from balance, barrel harmonics, bedding, consistency in your ammo, and how well your rifle's put together, not how long that steel tube is. You could take a short, stubby barrel and still outshoot someone swinging a 5-foot-long pole if your setup's dialed in. Bench rest shooters do it all the time. But let's be fair, there are situations where barrel length matters. If you're shooting something like a .264 Winchester Magnum, you don't want to be firing that out of an 18-inch barrel. That cartridge burns slow. You'd waste half your powder and your velocity would be all over the place. That's just bad physics. On the other hand, if you're shooting a .22 long rifle, anything past 12 inches is basically wasted length. The powder's done burning by then. You can have a longer barrel for looks or balance, but it won't do a thing for your groups. So what you actually want is just enough barrel to burn your powder efficiently and stabilize your bullet's twist rate. If the bullet's not spinning right, it won't fly straight, no matter how long your barrel is. Now, this myth probably came from hunters walking into gunsmith shops asking for ridiculously long barrels on their .270s or .30-06, thinking more length equals more accuracy. What they really mean is velocity. They're mixing up faster with tighter groups. Velocity can help flatten your trajectory and make it easier to judge long-distance shots. That's true. The bullet gets there quicker, wind has less time to mess with it, all good things, but velocity isn't accuracy. If you start hand-loading and think, hey, let's push this to the max for speed, you'll notice something. Your groups get worse, not better. There's always a sweet spot. Push past it and your rifle starts to wander. Happens with rifles, handguns, you name it. New reloaders make this mistake all the time. More powder equals tighter groups. Nope, you'll just end up chasing your tail and wondering why your target looks like shotgun spray. The reality? Shorter is often better. As short as you can get away with while keeping the performance you need. Myth 3, there's a comforting myth that gets tossed around at ranges and gun forums. If it groups at 100 yards, it'll group at 600. It's neat, simple, and feels true until you take a bullet down range and the wind starts talking back. External ballistics don't scale linearly. Tiny mistakes and tiny forces get stretched by distance until they aren't tiny anymore. A half MOA rifle at 100 yards can turn into a mess at long range. Why? Because small errors, sight alignment, trigger press, subtle change in ammunition, a gust of wind are magnified. Wind in particular is merciless. A 1 mile per hour crosswind that barely moves a group at 100 yards will nudge those same rounds enough at 600 yards to change your target entirely. If you want predictable hits at long range, you can't rely on hopeful assumptions. You have to measure and learn the nuances of wind and elevation at each distance you care about. Practical shooting isn't just a lot of math and tables. Test at multiple ranges. Don't guess wind, learn to read it. Adjust your load and technique for the distance. What prints tiny groups on a 100-yard target might fall apart 3 times further out because the load that is forgiving at short range reveals its imperfections under longer flight times and sharper environmental influence. History gives you a real-world counterpoint to the only 100 yards crowd. The standard issue service rifle used by British troops in World War II, no optics, plain iron sights, came with expectations. Training courses in 1942 included targets out to 500 yards in a mad minute. A basic rifleman was supposed to put at least 15 rounds into a life-size target at 300 yards within 60 seconds using iron sights. That wasn't a sniper or a specialist. That was the regular conscript. Skilled marksmen routinely pushed shots to 600 yards and beyond. 800 to 1,000-yard shots were not unheard of. The point? With steady fundamentals, practice, and discipline, ordinary soldiers were expected to make meaningful hits well past 100 yards. On the other hand, don't romanticize it. Distance shooting skill takes work. Danger close. The half joke that 100 to 200 yards is close enough to be terrifying in combat exists for a reason. Fundamentals are taught in the classroom, then immediately applied on the range, and it takes only a few focused hours for a beginner to learn the building blocks. I remember my marksmanship training in the Air Force. Half the room had never fired a rifle. The instructor looked around and said, essentially, if you pay attention, you'll qualify as an expert marksman today. I'd never touched a rifle before that morning. By the day's end, I'd zeroed sights and put rounds out to 300 meters in prone, standing, kneeling, and even while wearing a gas mask. It's not rocket science, but it does reward attention and practice. So let's be blunt about the original claim. A group at 100 yards does not guarantee the same group size at 600. Good 100-yard groups tell you potential, not destiny. Two things that'll destroy that promise: magnified errors and wind. Small mistakes that barely show up at a short range grow proportionally with distance. Wind, your primary invisible enemy, will move a bullet far more the longer it flies. Even a full-value 1 mile per hour crosswind can cause a measurable deflection at 600 yards. Those fractions of an MOA add up and bite you. Quick aside, seriously, thank you. The channel's been blowing up the last couple of months, and I notice every subscribe, every comment. If you watch and stick around, I really appreciate it. All right, guns checked, new ammo loaded, and I've been really liking Tikka lately. Myth 4, you need a Magnum to kill big game. Let's start with the one everyone loves to argue about. It's the myth that refuses to die. The idea that you need a Magnum to take down big game. Usually people throw elk into that conversation like it's some kind of bulletproof tank out there in the woods. Here's the truth. You don't. You really honestly don't. Hunters have been dropping elk with rounds like the 270, 30-06, and 308 since before most of us were even born. Those cartridges have probably killed more elk than all the Magnums combined. That's not an exaggeration, that's just history. Now, that's not to say there's anything wrong with a Magnum, far from it. If I had to pick one cartridge to hunt elk with for the rest of my life, the 300 Win Mag would probably be sitting in my rifle case. But here's the thing, power isn't the only thing that matters. Inside reasonable hunting ranges, a well-placed shot from a 270 or a 30-06 is every bit as deadly. People get so wrapped up in more power that they forget the basics. Bullet construction and shot placement. Those two will do more for your success than an extra 100 feet per second ever will. And honestly, that's why I think more guys should be shooting lighter cartridges. They're easier to handle, easier to control, and because of that, people tend to shoot them better. At the end of the day, an accurate shot from a 308 beats a flinch and miss from a Magnum every single time. Plus, ammo for cartridges like the 270 and 30-06 is cheaper, easier to find, and doesn't punish your shoulder or your wallet. Every season, plenty of elk fall to those so-called small calibers. So if someone tells you that you need a Magnum to kill an elk, just smile, nod, and know better. Myth busted. Myth 5, the 30-06 is outdated. Call it unfashionable, call it old school. Say whatever you want about the optics, the dress, the memes, but outdated? That's a lie. If there's one surefire way to rile up hunters and YouTube commenters, it's to take a cheap shot at the 30-06. I get it. Doesn't have the flashy new name on the box that everyone loves each season. I've said my piece about its shortcomings, and yeah, it has them. Still, to write it off as obsolete is to ignore a century of proven performance. I keep a 30-06 around for a reason. It shows up in my videos because it still works. It's versatile. Lots of bullet weights, lots of purposes. Ammo you can actually find when you need it. It's not rare and it's not expensive. That combination is why hunters still trust it across North America. You'll find someone in the comments demanding that I should have used the 30-06 instead of the shiny 6.5 PRC I brought out this year. They're not totally wrong. I like testing new things, though. Curiosity keeps the sport interesting. So today we're going to put the 30-06 where it belongs, downrange. We'll run a few groups, try out some new ammo, and let the holes in the target do the talking. Let's see what it can do. Myth number 6. If it's blueprinted, tuned, it'll be a world beater. Truth. Blueprinting and tuning fix mechanical issues, useful but not magic. You'll need a good barrel, ammo, bedding, and trigger work. Blueprinting a garbage setup is expensive garbage painting. Do this instead. Prioritize parts, barrel, chambering headspace, bedding, trigger, blueprinting. Only tune after you've optimized fundamentals.